Harry Appelt, number 6. Probably one of the smartest players we've had. Certainly one of the guys that was a quarterback in the defensive backfield. Guy that made a lot of different adjustments. He's a 16-game starter for us. He switched positions from being a receiver to defensive back, and was a guy that really could diagnose almost anything that went on. One of the better safeties, I think, in the league, and a tremendous team player for us, and a guy we're certainly going to miss, Harry Appelt. Matt Benevento, number 33. Matt is probably one of our best competitors. As an outside linebacker, he had an uncanny knack of being able to play pass and run, which is something that we haven't seen in a long time at New Canaan. Aside from being a tremendous competitor and defender, he is good enough to be a Division I long snapper. So I think he's going to make some college coach very happy when he goes, hopefully to Bucknell, because he'll definitely be able to snap, and he's a guy that, you know, you can put a lot of different places. Matt Benevento. Will Besken, number 35. Kind of a special player for me because his dad also played for the Rams. He's a guy that has worked out tremendously. I don't think he missed a Zoom workout at all. Changed his body for the better to help him able to take the blows of football. And a guy that, you know, just worked his rear end off every single day just to help us improve. And he's a great team member, great teammate, and a guy that certainly we're going to miss next year. Reid Brown, number 17. Special player for me, especially because his dad and his uncle played at New Canaan. His grandfather is a football official that I've known for as long as I've been in New Canaan. So it's a special family. And to watch how Reid came along and developed behind Drew Pine and just worked his rear end off every single day to get better and better. And then he finally gets the opportunity to show what he can do. And we started out, and he was tremendous. He really did. He had a great year. It's just unfortunate that we had this COVID pandemic that limited us to 4 games, because he was a great captain, a really good leader, and a guy that you know, you could always count on. So Reid Brown, we're going to certainly miss him. Christian Canet, there are certain players that get you excited to see him play the game. That comes with such energy and such enthusiasm. It gets everybody else excited, and the team feeds off it. As one of our captains, I think he's been one of the best that we've had. His position on offense as an inside receiver or on defense, he has been, you know, one of the most outstanding players that we've had this year. A guy that really, if you look at his stats, he ran 2 kickoffs back in 4 games. He returned punts. He's done just about everything that you could ask of a player to do, and he's done it all with a lot of class and enthusiasm. Just a class act, and a guy that I know has a tremendous collegiate career. So we wish him the best, and I don't know how you replace a guy like Christian Canet. Henry Canaan, number 40, linebacker. Knew the overall scheme of the defense, was able to make adjustments on the fly. Certainly, you know, was our leading tackler, I believe, and a guy that was always around the football, whether it was pass, run, he was always around. You could always, if you look at our film, you could always see him. Played with a tremendous motor, and a guy that had an uncanny knack of figuring out exactly what was going on. I'm not sure how you replace a guy like that, but certainly a guy that had a tremendous career for us, and a guy that we're really pleased that he played for us, Henry Canaan. Christian Carson, number 44. One of the toughest running backs that we've had here. We've been trying to get a power runner, and certainly Christian is that guy. He had tremendous games for us. He's a guy that got injured because he plays so hard, and really he plays harder than his body can accept. A couple of times, you know, I wasn't sure whether he was going to, you know, be able to finish the game, but he got right back up and kept coming at you. And if you look back, even at last year's film, like in the against Darien last year, he's one of the key reasons why we were able to be successful. You could always count on him for giving 110%. You could always count on him for being there ready to go. He loves football, wants to play in college, and if we can find the right place, he's going to have a great career. Christian Carson. Ethan Chalon, number 4, might be our best performer of all the defense. A guy that has worked so hard to get where he is. And it's too bad that they didn't have the season, because I think he'd be an all-state candidate. The way he was so active, and another guy that was always around the football, and certainly was the heart and soul of what we did defensively. Never complained, just show up and play hard. I'm sure he was one of our leading tacklers, had a number of sacks, but a guy that was very, very difficult for the offensive linemen, even the offensive linemen that were like PGs for Brunswick. I mean, he was able to get around and do an awful lot. Certainly a disruptor, and a guy that is going to be hard to replace. Ben Clay, number 72. Ben is a guy that has worked extremely hard. Probably, I remember last year as a wrestler, he came to the FCX and he said he was sick. And how could you be sick? It's, you got to get in there, you got to wrestle and everything else, not knowing that he probably had COVID. So it shows you how dumb I was as a coach, but that's before we knew what COVID was. But you want to talk about a guy that was certainly one of our better linemen, a guy that worked so hard to get where he is. He's a guy that you can really run behind him, and you can count on him, doing his job. And a guy that I think is going to have a real good career at BYU. So I think, I think Ben is certainly a guy to watch, and it's certainly a guy we're going to miss. But hopefully Gilbert will fill his shoes. Jack Connors, number 25. Jack is a special player, a guy that takes an awful lot of pride in whatever he does, a guy that came this close to being one of our captains and probably should have been for his leadership abilities and what he brings and has brought every single day to practice. A guy that would go in and study defensive film of the opponent to make sure that when he got out there and he ran our scout team, that our scout team gave us the best possible look they could. A guy that was on special teams, a guy that you just can't replace someone like Jack Connors. He's a tremendous player, a tremendous person. He's going to be a great leader. Hopefully he'll get to the Naval Academy and become one of the great leaders of our country, really, because he's a special kid. And certainly it's hard to replace guys like that. Jack Connors. Ryan Corbett, number 8, one of our best receivers, a guy that, there are times when I look at him and I see he looks like a Division I receiver at times. He's worked very, very hard at his craft, at being one of our top receivers, has taken an awful lot of pride in New Canaan football and being that Z receiver that has done an awful lot. He's certainly one of our leading receivers, and made Reid's job a lot easier, the way he had an uncanny knack of getting open. So I hope he decides to play football at the next level, because I think he'd be a good one. Teddy DeClue, number 65. He's one of the kids that he made a lot of old jokes about the head coach, which I took personally. He also, maybe it's because I gave a lot of jokes to him, which is, probably even. But Teddy DeClue is one of our captains, one of those guys that had to make all the adjustments as a center. You could play him at center or guard. You could play him on defense. You can play him anywhere. But he is such a steady guy. Never got too excited, never got too down, was always there. Also takes pride in being a youth coach for the New Canaan Youth Football League. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy that I really look forward to seeing him continue playing football, because he's just so solid of a leader, so solid of a teammate. Hard guy to replace, Teddy DeClue. Bates Grigsby, number 12, a guy that transformed his body in the offseason, a guy that has worked so hard and became our lockdown corner. Whenever we had to go against a good receiver, we'd always put Bates on him because he's a guy that could make the adjustments and was athletic enough to do it, which is unusual for a kid his size to be a corner and be as athletic as he is to be able to cover those receivers. I think when he goes to the next level, I think he'll probably end up being a safety because he has the size for it. But it's a guy that I don't know how you replace in the secondary. Next year, I just wish we had the full season where he could have really done well, because with a 4-game season and him getting injured certainly didn't help. After he gets it fixed, I think he's going to be ready to go. Griffin Kotch, number 13. Griffin's a guy that came to us last year and came on the scene as a wide receiver. And you could see every day that, he gets a little bit better. And, he was able to mature as a football player and was a guy that, we put on the backside so he'd be one-on-one, because he's awful difficult to cover with anybody, one-on-one. And he has really good hands, and he works hard at trying to make himself better as a receiver. Good teammate. Guy that really cared a lot, maybe put a little bit too much pressure on himself, and rather than just enjoying the game, but a guy that is going to be a hard guy to replace, but one of our leading receivers. Nolan Larken, number 11. Nolan came in just this past summer, and he, worked very hard. He came from Pennsylvania, small school, and to come in cold and try to learn our system on either side of the ball, that's a daunting task. Many of our youth players learn it from 3rd grade on up, but he had to come in and learn it all at once, and I knew, you can tell that there were times when he seemed overwhelmed, but being an intelligent player and a kid that could really pick up things fast, he picked it up and became a guy in our secondary that was we counted on and was able to do it. An exceptional athlete. Really too bad about the COVID pandemic, because if we had a few more games where he got more comfortable and more used to the system, I think could have been a tremendous player for us. So I'm hoping to watch him play at the next level at some point. Great athlete, great teammate, Nolan Larken. Will McKay, number 2. There's a lot to be said about kids playing football, because you see him mature. And I've seen Will mature over his time at New Canaan, not only as a football player, but as a person. And I think that if you watch our film of the games that we played, you'll see him getting better and better and better. One of our leading tacklers, was tough enough to play inside, but yet was able to play the pass as well. When we blitzed, he was a tremendous blitzer, created a lot of commotion with the other opposing team's offense. Is all over the field, and a guy that we're certainly going to miss next year, Will McKay. Rusty Olenik. Rusty is from the Ukraine, and he came out for football, and I explained to his aunt and him that I wasn't sure how much you were going to play, and he said he didn't care. He just wanted to learn American football, and he understood that he was late to the game, and he understood that there was a lot of learning to do. But for a guy that stuck it out and was willing to do anything that we asked, I think he got a good understanding of what American football is. And you never know when he goes back to the Ukraine, if he does and wants to play American football, he'll have a leg up. But he's a guy I really do wish we had from freshman year, because I think he could have been very good for us. But you got to give him credit for sticking it out. We love you, Rusty. Cory Pickering, number 99. There's certain kids that play the game that develop as they go through. He worked very hard as a sophomore and a junior to get where he is today as one of the premier defensive tackles in our league. A guy that when you just turn the film on and you watch, he plays with such energy, such emotion. Sometimes I have to control him a little bit with the personal fouls here and there. But, I'd rather have that than trying to say, come on, let's go. You could tell by watching the film that he loves to play football. Very difficult to block. Probably our toughest player, bar none, of all the players that we have. A kid that doesn't back down, never, shies away from being tough. Just a guy that I don't know how you replace him, but he's a guy that hopefully we can find a good place for him to go play at the next level, because I think he'd be a tremendous college football player. Cory Pickering. Nick Radman, number 98, one of the premier kickers, I think, in the state of Connecticut. A guy that, as a punter, he looks like he could play Division I. I mean, he helped us out so many times with his punting ability. And as a place kicker, certainly he is in the record books as being one of our better kickers as well. A guy that, has worked very hard in the off season. A guy that, has been a really good teammate for the other kickers and trying to bring them along. And a guy that, certainly we're going to miss next year, Nick Radman. Hayden Shin, number 3, a running back. Probably the perfect complement to Christian Carson. Where Christian was the bull, Hayden was the dancer, not the dancer, but the guy that could really move. And he made some moves that, are on film that are just unbelievable. Big time move. And I guess it runs in the family because his brother was a great running back as well. It's really a shame that with the pandemic and COVID that he didn't get a chance to really display his talents more. That's why, if he gets the opportunity and he chooses, he could be an electric, a dynamic running back, and a guy that he doesn't say a whole lot, good teammate, works very hard, really happy with his effort and the type of person and type of teammate that he has become. So I wish we had him back, but we'll have to see what happens in the future. But if he wanted to, he could be a really good college running back. Hayden Shin. David Siegel, number 77. David is a guy that has a funny high school history. He beat out one of our top tackles as a sophomore. Actually filled in, and then he did so well we kept him there as a sophomore. Then in the summer in between sophomore and junior year, he hurt his shoulder, had to get an operation, missed all of his junior year. Then came back as a senior. We have COVID, so now we have this 4-game season. But, with his size and athletic ability, I personally think he'd be a tremendous Division I tight end. But if not, he's going to be an offensive lineman for somebody that's going to be very, very happy with his athletic ability and his temperament, where he doesn't get flustered. I mean, he's always upbeat, and he always got a smile and always willing to help out wherever he can. One of our captains and a guy that certainly anchored our offensive line, David Siegel. Henry Sokolawski, number 15. Henry is a guy that, I'm not sure. He was on the fence a little bit about playing football, and I'm certainly glad he did, because I've watched him, develop and grow. A guy that has been a tremendous teammate and was a key on a lot of our special teams, and certainly a guy that many don't know that he's an Eagle Scout, and one of his projects was to build the fence that we hang the sign on. So thank you so much for that, Henry. But as a football player, he's a guy that, just got better and better and better every year. And to see where he is now, not only as a football player, but as a person, certainly speaks volumes to his grit and his commitment to our football program and to his own development. So we're going to certainly miss Henry. Christian Sweeney, number 16. Here's a guy that, as a freshman was a quarterback, as a sophomore was a running back, as a junior and senior was, our best receiver, a guy that is electric, a guy that really makes things happen. Certainly was key to our victory in the Turkey Bowl of last year. And this year was on the same path to doing the same amount of great things. But because of our short season and an injury that happened to him, he wasn't able to really perform as he could have. But he's a guy that is going to make some college coach very happy. A guy that makes things happen all over the field. If you just watch the film, you'll definitely pick him out. I'm not sure how you replace a guy like Christian Sweeney. Braden Sweeney, number 91. As an outside linebacker, certainly is one of the best that we've had here since Zach Allen. A guy that he doesn't say a whole lot, but he shows up every day and is one of our toughest players. Certainly a guy that was difficult to outflank, a guy that played his position well, stayed at home, or when he did blitz, I mean, he was always a force. He's a guy that you can certainly count on as one of the pillars of our defense, and was a quiet leader and was able to make sure that the adjustments were made as well. So he's a guy that was one of the anchors of our defense and a guy that we're certainly going to miss, Braden Sweeney. Tchir, number 58. The only guy in all of my career that I threw off the team as a sophomore. You're not coming to practice, get out. And I thought I was done with him. And then the next day he shows up to practice again. And then I threw him out again. And he shows up again. Finally, I got tired of throwing him out, and he stayed. And lucky for us that he stayed, because as a nose guard, he was one of the better ones that we've had in a long, long time. He's a guy that can absorb blocks, yet hold his ground, a guy that really developed into being a great defensive lineman. There's some of the things he did and was able to get off blocks and make plays. Pass rushing was certainly better than adequate, but a guy that really worked hard, and I hope he continues to play in the future, because I think he could be really good. Tchir. Maddox Underwood, number 14, inside receiver. Guy that's worked especially hard in the offseason to make sure that he was able to be a starter and be the guy that we go to in tight situations. His patterns were as good as anybody we have, and a guy that really took pride in blocking as well as catching passes. He could put him in different spots, and he made the defense of the opponents confused about where he was and what he was doing, and they always had to make sure they knew where he was. But worked very, very hard for us, and had a great year, and certainly a guy we're going to miss.